But what we're going to talk about today is about connected play, which is basically connecting the physical world with the digital world, and ultimately gamifying the world around us. So I'm going to turn it over to Phil.
Hi, I'm Phil Sage, so I'm a Senior Director of Design Development, and my role really is to craft the world's best play experiences, and that's a mission from a corporate perspective. And yeah, as we said, what role journey I've been on the last 6 to 8 months is really how to bridge the gap between that physical and digital space, and then what are the enabling technologies which allow that to happen, and happen well. So.
Hi, my name is Krissa Watry. I'm co-founder and CEO of Dynepic, and we are working to make it really fast and easy to activate connected play experiences using our platform and toolsets.
Hi, South by, welcome. My name is Meir, and I'm from Israel. My background is basically designed for interactive, so our story is quite similar. We've all seen ourselves using one kind of interface and now a completely different one in our lifetime, and I think that's just the beginning. So a couple of years ago, friends of mine and I started a startup for kids' connected play, connected toys, and we'll tell you more about it during this.
Cool, so kind of jumping in, we'll start with Phil. So Hasbro, massive toy company. You guys do toys, games, everything else in between. But one of the cool things about Hasbro is they've created the most sort of connected play experience, or at least brought to market experimenting with the most technologies. So tell us a little about some of those technologies, some of the products.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So, yeah, when we step back and, let's say 18 months ago, if not further back, 24 months ago, we decided to kind of really engineer, put together a team of designers, developers, producers, technologists, and really stretch the boundaries of what's possible with the brands that we have, both the brands in the archive and the ones which you see in the public domain. So then we took a broad scope of where technology is. Obviously, technology is ubiquitous, and it's all around us. We have a supercomputer in our pocket. We have Wi-Fi, we have Bluetooth, we have all this in abundance. And then it's really then how do we latch into that, or how do we tap into that? Well, we do it in a natural way, and as well as kind of tapping into that architecture. It's really about the pace. Trends are accelerating faster than ever before, so they're coming in and they're exiting as quick. So we've had to adjust our processes as well. So, for example, a typical product would be developed between 12 to 14 months. We've now squeezed a large portion of that to 4 to 5 months. So that's taken a lot of crafting, behind the scenes, as well as kind of picking the right opportunities. And then really anchoring on the consumer insights, tailoring the ideas to them consumers, and that's allowed us to put these products out into the market at speed.
And you guys, in terms of technologies that you brought to market, it's been everything from wearables, robots,
Sure.
Bringing back Nerf in a new way, Beyblades. Tell us about some of those different products.
Something recently, last week, we were fortunate to launch a product called Lightsaber Academy, which really is a connected hilt to your smart device. And it really takes you on a journey of becoming a Jedi. You're mentored by Yoda or Darth. You can step to the dark side. You can, be with the allegiance as such, and you can then train, engage, and battle against AI. And you can actually pair more than one hilt to the smart device. So you can actually have safe kid battles against each other, almost like a rock, scissor, paper experience. So, and obviously then that connected layer and technology stack is pretty complex. We've got gyros, accelerometers, which are constantly working in the background, monitoring. But again, it's aligned to the consumer. The most important thing is that really deep storytelling, which ultimately is put into the hands of kids of all ages.
Well, and I was really fortunate to see Lightsaber Academy at New York Toy Fair, so that was sort of the big unveil here in the US.
Yes.
And what was cool about it is you actually have the lightsaber and get to move, and as Phil mentioned, it kind of reacts and monitors it, so it's not a wearable, you don't have to attach anything.
No. And you know, there is a solo mode where you can play with it, it's not connected, so you know, the technology stack is actually monitoring your performance. So for example, if you you know, vigorously kind of wave it around, then the dark side is being drawn out of you. If you are very methodical and you are doing the moves of a Jedi, then you're showing your allegiance to the Alliance. So so yeah, it's pretty incredible what we've managed to do. But again, it's about, you know, the baby steps to begin with, and then if you want to engage and go deeper into that, the layers underneath, then you can do that.
And then Krissa, from your perspective, I mean, not only is she the CEO of Dynepic, she's also an inventor. So share with people like some of your background and maybe some of the products, because you were and still are creating connected play experiences. So share with us.
Absolutely. So back in 2012, I got out of the aerospace industry and turned from rocket science into becoming an inventor in multiple industries. So I actually run a sports company as well that has a lot of products around our we reinvented the handle. But diving into kids, I really wanted to give back and started inventing talking toys pre-Alexa that were cloud-driven. Today, we invent stuff on the toy, game, you know, basically innovating around this connected play space. In doing that invention, though, I got to meet Phil and got to interact with a lot of the toy companies. What we really did was reveal that it was really hard to bring out a connected play experience to engage kids and their families because of all the child privacy laws. So you probably have seen all this data privacy stuff in the news with Facebook. Well, when you deal with kids here in the US, under the age of 13, there's some very strict child privacy laws that apply to you as a game developer, as a toy maker. And it was so burdensome that it was like, you know, the people who are making these creative ideas or creative toys are really limiting their play patterns. And wouldn't it be awesome if there was just this turnkey platform that took all the headache away from it and allowed kids to play in a social way, be safe, play with all ages, right? It's not just for kids, it's about bringing in families and grandmas and grandpas and older siblings. And so we put the toys aside and we built the platform. So Play Portal is a platform. We've got an awesome Unity plugin that's coming out next week that literally is load plugin, and you then have a complete backend that's COPPA compliant, so it meets all the child privacy regulations. It allows the kids to bring in their complete social network, and the developer does not have to worry about all the data privacy laws. So I'm really proud of that, but it was inspired through our toy inventing in the kids industry.
And so Krissa, for your platform, it has, tell us about some of the clients you've worked with, because you have over 35 clients now, is that right?
Yeah, so it's really our platform. So you choose a tool set to build your connected device or application with, and you choose incorrectly, and it turns out you have kids that are interested in your product, you know, you might have to rebuild your entire play experience to be compliant. You know, choosing Play Portal right from the beginning allows you to develop for all ages. So we're working with clients that have, you might think that they're more in the adult sphere, but as they go reach into youth, so in the sports side, we have some big sports organizations that will be launching connected experiences. So gesture recognition using Apple Watch for connected play. So these are actually Olympic style athletes that we can do gesture recognition on all of their movements. That gets tailored into a play experience where now kids and even adults can learn to, can improve their sports performance by using these applications and training like these Olympic athletes. So really cool connected play experiences across all different ecosystems. We have museums that are creating AR, VR content inside their museums. We have other connected toys and sports elements. So really it's fascinating to see what everybody is creating. And I get so excited about each one of them, so I could probably sit here and talk about all of them, but many things coming out, yeah.
Well, and it's interesting, so the topic's obviously gamifying the world around us, and it is sort of beyond video gaming, beyond just sort of toys. So what Krissa is talking about, you talked about your sports company, and you talked about sort of improving experiences like with Apple Watch and having that sports play. How do you see those experiences? Do you see differences from sports to toy to what's the differences there of your world?
I think there's one key item, and that's that it's all about the experience. It's not about the technology. So you got to really focus on what's the goal of the application that you're trying to achieve, and then go make the most amazing experience. So I think that's happening in museums and sports and in gaming and in toys. Is I think when connected technology first came out, we first saw connected toys, there was a lot of forced technology for technology's sake. And I think now what we're seeing is like just these amazing experiences, like you talked about Lightsaber Academy. Like how can you use this technology and make it transparent to your end user and just like let them go into a totally new world or have a totally different experience, and use those technology items that are around them so that you have a friction-free experience. So not having to like really activate or download this or do that, that it's just, they can just be in this world. As I took on the challenge of connecting kids into the digital world, I mean, I see everyone's like, oh man, you're gonna put more screens in front of my kid's face. It's like, no. Once people have a secure connection to the digital world, the entire world is connected. So my goal is actually to take a lot of this screens away and empower everybody to go create amazing experiences.
I think you used the word friction-free, and I think that's really important. I think we need to lead with the play. The play dictates, and then the enabler is the technology that's patched in order to make it an authentic play experience and allow it to flow. So I think that's really important to highlight.
100%. I think it's about enhancing that experience. And Krissa, what you touched on a little bit is that like kind of history. And so even if we rewind, like connected play is not new. It's been around for a long time. That sort of idea of physical, digital play. But if you kind of, rewind to say within the past 5 years maybe-ish, that's really when that forced experience, right? It was like, okay, we have a physical product, now there's an app for that. We're just gonna throw an app on, and now it's digital. We're with the times, people, right? And then it kind of evolved from just kind of having an app to it to then having sort of the screen as the remote. So you still have that screen play experience. To now, I think we're getting to a really interesting place because it is about having the options to play connected or not. Or with the power of voice and having Alexa gameplay experiences coming out and those screen-free experiences. Really those options to play connected or not. As you talked about Lightsaber Academy, I think that's where we're in a happy place where that is, and I think as creators and inventors, continuing to have that play anywhere mindset is going to be interesting. That being said, I want to hear from Meir. Tell us a little bit about StoryBall because you do have a screen-free experience.
I'll talk about something that Krissa said in the beginning. What they do is they enable, and they said, wouldn't it be cool if, and I love what you say that, because that's the way the industry is thinking. Like, what's the interface? What can I do? Hey, wouldn't it be cool if I can talk to it and it understands me? And wouldn't it be cool if it remembers where I stopped and came on the same place and all of that? So I think that we learn from each other and really try to push the next boundary. What's the possible tech, the hardware we can do, and what we can actually give you like magic with it. So we did kind of we're a little bit different here in this. We're a small company, and we're not a big one yet. But this is the advantage, I think. We have interfaces. We have something that everybody can use quite easily and implement quite fast in our phone. So you all can turn in with your phone to be something that plays with something that I do, right? All you have to do is download my app, now you're connected. So what we did is, yes, screens. We wanted to get kids a little bit away from the screen and more playing within the real scope of reality, but we also wanted to enhance reality, make it cooler, a little bit more interesting. We found something that we think fits differently than the device of a phone, which is not the screen that they drop or fall, so they have like smart connected speakers that they take with them, kind of guides them through the day or through games or through activities. And the more the interface knows about you, the more the experience becomes interesting and unique. And I think that's the cool thing about connected play, because from nothing it becomes everything. It pops to life, it can speak, it speaks to you, and it gives you an illusion. And that's basically what games are. They're kind of an illusion, but we love to set our hearts to it, right? That's what we do at StoryBall. Try to give them this sense of play without the screen, just a listening experience.
And share with everybody a little bit more about StoryBall. Like, kind of walk us through the experience. Like, what is it, or yeah, tell us more about it.
My hand, so most of you can see this. Basically, it's a smart speakers where it also incorporated motion sensors inside it. So we took like Alexa and took Wii and put them inside this cute little bear character. It's actually a ball, so we pass around and play with it. But the ball changes personalities in characters. So I think this is something very important, not just for kids, for everyone, to have a customized game or character or skin or something that we can more resonate with, want to play with. Also merchandise, right? There's branding, licensing, gaming. This is an industry of millions of dollars for brands. We want to play with the right characters. This is one of the reasons why this industry succeeds. So you can just take skin, and I think you would find a lot of apps. You can just change one small thing, and then suddenly you have a big fan base of that character or brand. So we have that. That would change the voice. That would change the age that it would talk to, right? 4 or 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, all again based on the story. And I think, like Phil mentioned in the beginning, this storytelling. How do I lure you into this journey? That's what's special about that. And with StoryBall, the characters, they can sense the motion of the player. We ask the children to hold it with their hands, and they join on a tale, on a story. They walk in the forest, so they actually have to walk, and they hear the forest, and they have to just do the missions physically themselves instead of pressing what they would press on the keyboard. They would have to jump, and they would have to answer riddles, and they would have to do several different things in their kind of half reality, half digital adventure.
Enhance, like it is about enhance. Like I feel like everything, that's what we're seeing, it is how the technology enhances, the experience. And one of the common themes with what all of you guys have worked on is really that idea of getting kids up and moving, okay, and really kind of gamifying that. There's all these crazy stats about obesity and, that kind of belief that, kids are just sort of sitting on their console or they're sitting in their tablet and they're just kind of sitting around getting sucked in to the screens. But really, all three of you are creating experiences that do get kids up and moving.
Active,
Yeah. So Phil, and tell us about a couple of the ones that you guys have done.
Yeah, so the team wrapped up Laser Ops, which is a nerve blaster that allows you to throw an IR beam 225 feet, so you can have a laser tag battle against one or more people. And obviously, that's for kids of all ages. It's in play, and it also allows for that and promotes that outdoor play, going into the local park or even in the house. So it really is that get up and go. I want to engage in battle. So that's definitely one example from the past development window.
Mm-hmm. And one of the ones that maybe doesn't get people moving too fast, but I love this. It's called the slow motion game.
Yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit about that one.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a headband that you actually put on your head, and instead of rushing around, you have to get from A to B and actually walk in very slow motion. So, and the minute that you do go too fast, you you upset the band and it gives you an alert, or it just speaks a question back to you, or hey, you're going too fast. But the idea is that there's tons and tons of videos out there of people moving in slow motion in groups, and obviously it's a lot to do with social listening, social exposure. So we decided to build a game around it, and I think the Hasbro gaming team, they did a great job executing. And I think you actually played it quite recently.
Oh yeah, there's evidence on Twitter. Because I'm generally a pretty expressive person, if you guys haven't noticed that. But so trying to do the slow motion game, it was like, I was like doing this, and I went too fast, and I set it off. So yeah, there's some funny clips on Twitter of that.
Absolutely.
So although it's not a cardio workout, what's cool is it is getting people up, it's getting them connecting, interacting in the physical world. And you guys had some great footage of like sort of parents and like a parent and child playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a true family game where anybody can play. It's very easy, low amount of rules, and it's fun to play, fun to share. So it worked really well. Another example, to do with movement is obviously we have Beyblades, which is about pulling a ripcord, battling in an arena, and actually we took that into more a connected space versus it just being an activity to battle against a peer. We actually tapped a little bit into the esports world where you can actually take the top, scan it in, then digitally get your tops into your ecosystem. Or by the way, then you could play or battle against players from 90 countries, so within the app. So you're having this digital experience and expression. But again, it's been a great drive for that brand.
And then Meir, so tell everybody a little bit of history about StoryBall, because correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't start out as a toy, right? How did it start out?
It didn't. It did start as something that the heart of it was to make people respond in motion. Okay, so this started as a device, as a ball that was used for physiotherapy, for regaining joint motion and gesture rehabilitation. It was a ball for patients to squeeze, basically, right? So now it had a light inside it, and you had a game in the app, that you had to look at the app and then squeeze a few times or throw around and twist your elbow or whatever. I think the switch came when we wanted more. Like I said, okay, wouldn't it be cool if suddenly it would just tell me what to do instead of me looking at the app. So put in a speaker inside. Okay, now it's talking. Okay, let's draw a little eyes on it, because that's cute, right? So that's ninja, weird, like looking prototype. I wish I had a picture to show you here. But we fell in love, and suddenly this character tells you to do something. Do it, get a sound effect at the right that moment, and you're like, that's magic. And that's I think that's the play that you're always looking for. I think this is the Pokemon Go, which you just real Pokemon around you. This is new for us, and we always like that excitement. So I think when we found this, it shifted from just doing games for patients to just games for everyone. Why not? And you add more and more because you want more. And I think that as consumers, we want more ways to interact. It's like the Apple remote TV. You can talk to it, you can swipe it. There's more than just one way to interact. There's more than just one way for me to get what I want. And the customization changed everything. I think that's where it really pivoted into like, there's something there, there's something interesting, another way of interacting with technology. It's like taking the phone and turning it into this, now it's a ball. Drop it, do whatever. So that was the journey, basically. It's a whole way of finding a new interface, I think.
And then Krissa, we did kind of touch on it for a minute, but share a little bit more about, in terms of your sports business, in terms of something to play, do you plan, do you create those sort of physical experiences when it comes to toys? Is it just an inspiration that triggers it, or like how do you come up with this sort of physical play?
Yeah, I think in most design, there's some spark that you get that's like, it's that what if, like, oh man. And then as an inventor, I have to usually spend the entire weekend working on it. So, and now I have this platform, right, that we can bring it out really fast to test it out. But so usually it's a spark. There's something that I'm like, what if that wasn't that hard, or what if we did this? And it's an evolution. Like sometimes you don't know. I would challenge you all to like think freely sometimes about a design or a problem, and just see where it takes you. Because sometimes you're going to end up doing something that's just like amazing, or something that other people wouldn't have thought of, but it's like plain as day. Like actually when we reinvented the handle, it's not really about connected play, but when we did that, it was just such a like, oh my gosh, like this cone-shaped handle doesn't exist. Like this just makes so much sense. And I'd say in connected play going on right now, that's the fun part is there's everything hasn't really been invented, right? Like this is a whole new world. Like look at AR and VR and how this digital world is coming online, and how are humans going to interact with it. I think we have a big opportunity right now to like really innovate and be really creative and just blow people's minds. Like I love when you can just blow people's minds with an experience.
And one of the really awesome things about Play Portal is you've kind of instilled that creating spirit in that. So what Play Portal does, it really enables people to get on the platform, be able to create that social experience. So they're spending more time creating their actual play. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so basically what Play Portal is an all ages, kids safe, what we call family network. So we try to add in all the protections so that kids can actually be on there with adults, and then I have to sleep at night. So we have all the content moderation and flagging, and we talk to a lot of parents on how kids how they want to manage their kids with friends lists. But then now parents have a single place where they can have their kids online and know that that data is protected inside of our servers, and they own their own data, not owned by us, we just host it. And then they can take it with them. So when you log into any of the apps that use our developer tools, when they log in, they can actually grab their information with their parents' permissions and bring them into the experience. So now you have a completely social and personalized experience inside of all these other games and devices that have never been able to really be done in the kids industry before. And then as you look at connected play, it's not just about kids. One thing when we started, we were just looking at kind of that kid and parent experience. And we quickly realized, well, how do they then play against their uncle, right? Or how do they, if this is a brand and the brand is a movie, it's got to appeal across all ages. And that's really why Play Portal ended up being all ages. So we really are the only platform in the world with developer tools sitting on top of an all ages social network. We tried to just solve that problem. And it took a long time to do that, because we had to go meet with lawmakers. We had to verify, right? Like I served in the Air Force managing ultra-secure communication satellites. So we built it with military-grade hardware and security provisions. And what was really awesome is that our first white label of our platform is actually with the U.S. Air Force. So really validating our security, they're using it for creation of apps and augmented reality, virtual reality. So even our military is looking at how to gamify their experiences and leveraging our tool set. So again, never would have thought, if you would have told me that was going to be used by the military, I would probably said you're crazy. But that's where, like I say, keep an open mind about your innovation, because you have no idea sometimes where it can lead. Yeah.
Cool. And then, so Krissa, you talked about obviously the Air Force. But who are some of the other companies? We talked about having Play Portal as a platform that can enable startups. So maybe someone's like StoryBall or startup like that. So if you can share with us maybe some of the startups that you're working with and how Play Portal enables them to create those experiences.
Yeah, so we just launched our developer tools in September, so we have about 30 different developers and companies currently in our sandbox. Not everything can be announced since they're all like brand new things that they're working on. But Space Foundation is developing some really cool connected play experiences for their museum and allowing their consumers to come into the museum, have an amazing experience, right? Store that experience, and then be able to engage them outside the museum and engage other folks that maybe couldn't come to the Space Foundation Museum. So there's some really neat use cases of connected play going on inside of museums today. I actually think museums have some of the coolest connected play experiences. So if you guys haven't been to a museum lately, because you might think they're old-fashioned, go there. Like, 'cause I actually think the technology being brought about in the museums today, it's totally modern. So then like I said, sports companies, I can't talk about a bunch of the companies on the platform right now, but we'd love to have startups. We work with startups all the way up to the Air Force, right? So across the board.
And so kind of going back to more some kind of traditional toy company, but not traditional because Phil's an iPlay, but about, you see Hasbro gaming on a bunch of products. Like, what does gaming mean at Hasbro, and then what does gaming mean? How are you seeing gaming in the marketplace and iPlay?
It's a good question. So I think we have a terrific team. I mentioned social listening. They're always looking for the new trends, marketing design, unified images, and then trends. And what they're doing is they're building experiences for families, right? So bridging the relationships between kids and parents of all ages. And but also beyond delivering a great play experience, it's about the value, right? So we're all experiencing, let's say the need to innovate at lower price points right now, as certain economies and markets go into change and into flux. They've done a great job focusing on delivering that magic on that level. On an iPlay level, we still need to deliver magic, but we also need to make sure that we are relevant in terms of all the, like I said, the technology stacks that are around us. We have that opportunity to tap into that and make things which are of relevance, and also just add value in much different ways. You mentioned voice. Voice is definitely is here to stay. Robotics is accelerating at an alarming pace. I think by 2022, according to some reports, it's a $23 billion category. So that's certainly a huge category for us to partake or explore within. AR, MR, and VR is automatic. Particularly to you guys in the room. I think it's now a matter of time before that influx of play really comes down to a young consumer who can really kind of go into it on a daily, hourly basis, and have dialogue and competition with others, in virtual space. So it's really exciting, So and really that's a bottom why iPlay exists today.
Well, it's interesting, some of the experiences that you guys have brought to market. So kind of building on the voice, you guys had a Trivial Pursuit chat.
Sure, yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. So for you guys that don't know, they have the echo buttons, and it had like different lights. I liked it because it is like that kind of game show buzzer experience. You can have that kind of physical touch with Alexa.
Yeah, we published a skill which then connected to the gadget buttons, and ultimately, again, it's there to experiment, get that into the hands of users, learn from that engagement and experience, and then that will fuel then, I mentioned consumer insights, we all need to learn through the things that we put into people's hands. We can only build better and bigger things by understanding that learning. So deconstructing what worked, what didn't work. Okay, let's accelerate that piece. Let's make it, emphasize that piece. So that's kind of like part of the, the innovation pipeline. It's really through that research.
Cool. And then from like, you talked about AR, you talked about robotics. So one of the data points, I think I think you and I know and love,
Yeah.
is the $280 billion opportunity. So that's by 2023, and that's for AR gaming. And so not only just AR, enhancing the sort of world around us, but we are seeing AR and robotics, right? So some of you guys may know Megamon, but it's the world's first AR gaming robot, and so it kind of looks like this cool spider type experience, and but yeah, it has sort of AR gameplay, and you guys have For Reals and had that kind of robotic experience. Tell us a little bit about For Reals and some of the sort of tech in there.
We have another group, which is a sister group as such, called the ATI, Advanced Technology Innovation Group. And basically, they've been building mechanisms for many years. So all these beautiful pets with wonderful movements and gestures and personality. They've come out of this group, and ultimately they've built everything from an interactive parrot all the way through to an interactive puppy, and obviously stretch boundaries then in terms of actually building a full-size pony, which was roughly around this big, at I think around a $300 price point. But what they managed to achieve is a lot with little. So when they're building their mechanisms, they're reversing cams, they are using power really efficiently, and it allows them to have great expressions and everything else. But another key element to that, both in the ATI and our group, iPlay, is that we really rely not just on our own ideas, but we rely on working with others like yourselves in this very room. We all mentioned that we all know each other, or we've known and engaged with each other. I think that pipeline of working with inventors externally, bringing that external innovation in, is really powerful. And I think we've particularly, I'd say, in the last 6 to 7 years, really crafted a great way to work with the world. That includes startups, that includes a person in their basement with a 3D printer. It includes some of the larger corporations that we're all aware of. And I think if you don't have that eye to work and collaborate, that then causes a little bit of insular innovation building. So that's been really healthy both for our teams and ultimately for brands like For Real, who've worked with some great mechanism people, for example.
Well, and then kind of going back to Nerf. So what I love about the Nerf story is with Nerf Laser Ops, the inventors for that is Shoot the Moon. And they are I call them the creators of connected play, because these guys were with Worlds of Wonder, who invented the Teddy Ruxpin way back in the day, and they invented the original laser tag. So that was back in the 80s, and these guys are continuously creating. One Inventor of the Year towards the end of last year, and I think it's awesome that you guys have this relationship with them.
Yeah, I mean, there's inventors that we've worked with for decades, and I think as much as it's about the new talent that's coming through, it's also about working with that. The people who've worked over that long time period. But what's amazing about Shoot the Moon, for example, is that they've reinvented themselves along the way. They've been in the industry 40 plus years, and so what's great is they've worked on the original back in the 80s, but now fast forward to all the technology which is integrated in Laser Ops Pro. They're the people who's managed to craft that with us. So yeah, it's a great story and it's a great example, and there's many more that we can highlight.
And so Meir, when we talk about StoryBall and having that enhanced experience and the different stories with the different characters, you guys have a license with Nickelodeon. So what kind of stories are we gonna hear?
So 2019 is going to take out a few that we really love personally. So yeah, Paw Patrol from Nickelodeon is one of them, and another experience that we're trying to kind of introduce to the market, because there's a little bit of new thing here we're going to try is a read and play experience. What happens when I have a character in the book or the story? How can I interact with it? I think we're starting to see skills around that, so you can read with parents' time, you can read with their kids, or the reads can read out loud. But we're actually going to try to do it in a way that you can either watch something on television reenacted, or read a book and reenact it or listen or make sound effects or music and all of that and really enrich the book. And then in that way you just don't take old content, or not new content, sorry, like Nickelodeon, but we can also go back and take stories that we love. So there's a lot of things that we can just bring back and create experiences for stories that disappeared. That's also something that we're going to do, and bring out IPs that probably for us as kids were the ones that we know, and we want our kids to try again. We'll try to revive these as well.
Like one of the stories I think that would be awesome for StoryBall is Where the Wild Things Are. Like can we make that happen? Because that would be amazing with all the characters and like walking through the forest and hearing the leaves, you know. Like,
it's a good point to mention, for example, a company called Novel Effect that's been doing that as well, that's working around voice and reading. And they've taken this exact story, so if you have it at home, download Novel Effect on iOS or Android, go home and read to your kids and try to just get the experience of what happens when the story completes one sentence in the middle of your reading. And suddenly there's sound effects of the waves, of the roaring, of the claws, and all of that. It's really nice for the kids, really nice for you as parents to find kind of the middle time where you can be physical, be like old-fashioned play, but really make it something that they can still listen to, or because they would lose attention. Reading is hard now, and I try to enhance it. It works. It really does work.
one of the friends, colleagues, collaborators called Novalia, and they are phenomenal. So what they've done is they've taken the power of voice of Alexa. They graduated from the Alexa accelerator, and they have this like board game like experience, and powered through Alexa. But the cool part about it is it actually has touch incorporated in it, and so it's different story experiences that it may say, touch the planet or the gorilla, or what does this, and really getting kids engaged, screen free, but still having that game-like experience. And then two, with Alexa, it's that idea of getting the product out, but very easy to add those stories and add that content. So I think that kind of tactile interaction for small kids is awesome. And then two, we talked about the Trivial Pursuit and enhancing the board game experience. And I don't know if any of you guys caught the panel earlier, but Zay Ortiz, one of the co-founders of X2 Games, so they're doing some phenomenal stuff with board games. They have St. Noir that is on pre-order now, but there's like a family game coming out. So they have sort of this game for grown-ups, and then they have this gameplay for kids from a board game, Alexa-like experience. So I think you're going to see some interesting work in terms of like how they're bringing this kind of physical play with voice. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen any other voice.
No, I think X2 Games have done a great job, and if you should take a look at the trailer, it's basically a detective game where you go on a journey. It's a connected board, and Alexa's, the voice in the background. So they've done a fantastic job, and I think you're right. There's going to be an influx of things which are coming, from voice in the home. And also, Alexa is not just, limited to the home. You've got in the car, you've got it across, let's say smart cities, smart cars, smart everything. So I think that there's new playground to play in.
That was one thing that we really started looking at, is how are these devices going to be able to talk together? And then if they have a common platform, can brands even mix, right? Like, can someone else develop an app that would use, like the StoryBall? And how is like connected play going to evolve? So those are the things that we're starting to investigate, is kind of that device to device and toy to toy, and then being able to allow open innovation and others to use it, so that you're not just like creating apps for a phone, you're now creating apps that might join play items in a whole new experience.
Well, and one of the things, so Krissa, we actually spoke at ChiTag, and one of the cool things you had there was the sort of sensor that enabled, again, with your platform, enabling developers to have a sort of safe, secure, social experience. You also have this sort of sensor thing, so tell us a little bit about how that enables connected play.
One thing we're trying to do is just take everybody everybody else's connected devices and make SDK example apps so that everyone can just download it and get started and maybe become a toy inventor yourself. And so the one I had with me at that was the Ambient Labs has a pretty cool coin cell module that has a motion sensor on it and Bluetooth. So we have taken that, we're making example applications, and we've already used it for one client, is using it inside their product to get their MVP out. So there's a lot of really neat little modules today that allow you to create a connected experience, and those modules are pretty low cost, so you can actually use those modules in your product if you want to bring out a product. It might not be the end chip that you decide to use when you're selling millions, but if you're just trying to get your product and test it and see how it's going and do small quantity sales, there are chips on the market that do that.
Cool. And kind of going back to augmented reality in physical spaces. So again, on the panel earlier, there was John Keith from SWATBots, and that's their connected play augmented reality toy. And what's awesome about SWATBots, it's actually their parent company is a company called Draw Code. And so that when we talk about gamifying the world, they are creating those experiences in museums. They're creating those ways for people to really get immersed in their physical environment, but then also having the ability to bring it down to this teeny tiny connected, see now, get it out, experience, and really having augmented gameplay. And so I think they're interesting because they can have that breadth of really gamifying these worlds in the physical world and then the toys themselves. So Phil, I say all that because I wanted you, if you could share with us a little bit about the Hasbro Kilburn Family Entertainment Center. So kind of going beyond toys, but places and spaces.
Yeah, it's an exciting opportunity. In November last year, we announced a partnership, an agreement with Kilburn, and basically we're going to take our Hasbro World Best Play experiences into an environment. And so basically it's going to be a place for families to gather, to engage, to play, and ultimately they will roll out these different environments throughout the US. And so yeah, there's a slate, and so yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to get the products in the hands of families and kids we design for, but at the same time, I think families are looking for experiences in order to bridge, great relationships with, their family members and their kids. So it's really a facilitator, and it's also great for our brands to be part of the right tools in order to kind of create the magical moments together.
And can you tell us about any of the brands that'll be featured, or any sense of what people can experience in the places?
Yeah, all we know right now is that the portfolio, the right selection of brands will go into the right environments. So there's no real details that's been revealed. But what we can guarantee is that this is going to be a place where you want to go time and time again. So obviously we have franchise brands which include Monopoly and Transformers and My Little Pony and a lot of big big brands. You've mentioned Nerf. Obviously they'll be visible and in that environment. So yeah, more to follow.
Yeah, well, I'm asking because I want to go because I am a laser tag fan. I go to the arena. Actually, there's laser tag here locally, so if there's any laser tag fans, it's the largest one in Texas. So yeah, that's awesome. But also, the sort of classic arcades in play. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how that plays out. I said it. And then Meir, what other things can we expect? You talked about obviously expanding the library, I guess if you call it. I don't know if you call it the StoryBall library. What other?
What other to expect? I think actually what I'd like to point out, a few things, is the things that we would probably see next year at South by Southwest, or 2 years from now at South by Southwest, and that's the gaming. Basically everything is becoming, it's double time faster, double time smaller, right? So the experience becomes into real. And when you were pointing out that there's the laser tag and shooting a gun, you can shoot a gun that doesn't feel that way, it still feels digital. I think we're going to go into physical impact. Right now you can wear something that gives you haptics. And right now you can hear sound. It sounds more in real. So the next years, I think us as creators, as artists who make sound or make visual experiences, for us the 8K or the 360 sound, that's where it's going to get better. Because the level of the experience is going to be improved. And also for us, I hope for us in StoryBall that we will be able to follow up and give this experience the kind of follow-ups to standard. If you're playing any new kind of headset or any, I got to wear the Magic Leap's new headset this week. It was actually very comfortable. I'm not getting paid for this, but it sounded well, it felt well. And I was finally a little bit more agreeing to augmented reality, to sit on my face. Until now it wasn't that good, but so the competition would be for the best hardware, but also the best experience, and the best sound design, the best visual design. That's where we want to take it to.
I'm not sure if did you guys get to try the Bose AR, the glasses? I mean, it was phenomenal. Just, you could, they mentioned they had a couple of games already out, but they weren't demoing them, sadly. So I really wanted to see what that experience was like, but just even experiencing and hearing the sound and how it kind of canceled out some of the stuff, and we really did have that immersive experience. I think, like, especially with the stories that you guys are doing, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
It gets closer and closer to reality, and the more we want to play with it, that's the absurd, right?
Cool. And then as far as, Phil, from your perspective, Hasbro's done quite a bit of work in the AR space. So from Hero Vision, obviously the laser ops, we talked about that, and kind of video gaming the world with that. What other experiences can you talk about or share with us, in terms of AR and really having that enhanced experience?
Yeah, I mean, for those who are not aware, Hero Vision was basically an Iron Man mask that you put your phone in, and ultimately you could then go on a journey like Tony Stark, and basically go on an adventure to battle your enemies. And we were using markers, so it was a case of kind of a fixed position, so you weren't walking around. When the markers were in front of you, then you get your enemies, and then the repulsor then also had a marker on it, which then picked up your hand and tracking movement and allowed you then to direct and blast through that different movement. So it was a combination of like 3 or 4 markers, and ultimately it was a $49.99 price point. So again, it was trying to provide value, but also trying to, let's say, get in front of where VR, MR, AR is going and will go. So yeah, it was a great success. We put it into market. So it was a great benchmark. But to rewind a little bit into the past, we actually did something called My 3D, which was back in 2008, and that was essentially a goggle where you put your phone into it, and then you could go on and engage with a variety of different titles. But ultimately, it was way ahead of its time, and so we've actually had quite a bit of experience now in the AI and VR space, without really kind of really trying to innovate around value price points, but also giving you the play experience, which is obviously critical to its success. So yeah, that's basically the things I can talk about. Lots of things cooking in the background, but I'd love to tell you more. Maybe this time next year.
Cool. And then, Krissa, from your perspective, I mean, you work on all kinds of technologies. Is there, anything to share with everybody in terms of you've done the wearables?
Yeah, I think that I would just share that everything isn't a success, but a failure is revealing maybe what the next not going to work this way, right? Like in connected play, like you have to test it with your consumer. You have to see how they're going to interact with it. You have to fine-tune it, be prepared to fine-tune it, and take their feedback and just keep at it and iterate. Because I think that's when the real magic starts to happen. Everyone up here has been on a journey for many years, right? Like it's not typical that something is just an overnight, like instant magical play pattern, right? Like it took a lot of insight, a lot of failure, a lot of iteration to get there. So just keep at it in your experiences.
And I think when you talk about experiences and really talk about consumer experiences, some of the things that I've seen and in some of the work that we've done too is just even on the packaging, right? So if you have new technologies, you know, and like you can rattle them off, it's like all the acronyms, right? It's like AR, VR, NFC, RFID, you know, all these other wearables, haptics, like whatever. Like if you're a parent and you're like, okay, here's this box and it has all these acronyms on it, like you know, really important all the way through the design process, right, of really communicating what that technology is. I mean, it's kind of a question for the group here, you know, how, you know, any particular packaging experiences that you've seen that worked, that didn't, marketing perspective, because technology is complicated. So what are some pluses or minuses that you've seen?
I mean, the only thing I can really share is that, you know, it's the full package. You have to go right down from the inception of the idea right through to the final execution of the packaging. You know, trying to communicate what's in the box is tough. You know, it can be tough. So ultimately, as you're designing, you're thinking about what communication that needs to be included, how does that affect packaging, you know, the various inserts that are going to go in the packaging. So, you know, and then what is that crystal clear marketing message that needs to be communicated, you know, in the box. So, which we rely on our global brand teams in order to curate that with us. And they're part of that journey as we go through the various sign-offs. So, you know, there's no real recipe for, you know, for an example of packaging which really worked well, but I think, you know, crystal clear marketing message, less is more, and I think that's what served us really well.
Cool. And then I think we just have a couple more minutes left. So I just wanted to see, you know, from each panelist, you guys can share with us, you know, how do you see sort of the future of play? How do you see any kind of trends you're seeing in terms of how people are gamifying the world, whether it be, you know, for learning, for play? So just any kind of like final insights there.
I'm pretty passionate about the future of play. It's something that really excites me. I believe that the tools that we have today, when they are put in the hands of today's and tomorrow's generations, basically that's going to unlock future leaders and thinkers in the world. It's going to inspire them, it's going to culture them, it's that sensory input, which then leads to the output of that child, you know, as they play and engage with these tools in their hands. So that's something I'm really passionate about, and I feel, you know, we're at a critical point right now where we're latching onto various technology layers, but we're also very mindful of the importance of the physical thing in your hand, and curating them in the right way can lead to very, very big things and impactful things down the line.
I think that we're going to see connected play change dramatically in that it's going to be completely immersive and less about, right, like a screen and a single experience. I think it's going to be all senses, and that's going to be a big thing coming out here in the next 5 years.
My keyword is layers, I think, because basically you would always be able to interact with the physical space, that wall, that thing that I'm holding in my hand, and then there will always be the second and third and fourth level that I can go into, and if I compare it into gaming, there's going to be connected experience and play experiences. They're going to be like an Easter egg. There's an Easter egg. It's going to be hidden somewhere. Nobody's going to use it, but the people are going to use it. Are going to love that. But again, that's a layer. If you like the basics, you're going to get the basics. If you want another layer, I don't know, audio in the museum, we used to walk with this. That's technology also. That's similar. So there's more and more layers. You can scan that with your augmented reality. You will choose your own. But we will also go back to having that physical basic. So the basic will have to accumulate. We will have to make venues and spaces, and still, I think also, for example, retail will change a lot because we're not necessarily going to the store for the object, but we are still going to go to the store to see it or to buy it, so it's going to also change how that would appear. So there's going to be a layer to every dimension pretty much, and it would be fun.
Cool. And then how can people reach out, connect to you?
Google.
Yeah, LinkedIn.
Last
you know,
night.
I'll be around the show for the next few days, so come and grab me if you see me. But yeah, happy to answer any questions or any sidebar conversations. So yeah, no problem.
Someone said Facebook's dead, so try to find it. That's next year.
Yeah, LinkedIn.
Likewise. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time to hear us and hear our perspectives. And yeah, we definitely love to connect with anyone interested who's working in gaming, wants to work in gaming, wants to collaborate on making games, any of those things. So thank you guys.